Children having imaginary friends is considered cute, innocent and harmless. But as one family discovered in Georgia, not all invisible playthings are a figment of the imagination. I'm Bleaki, and Happy New Year. I want to start off by saying thank you guys for watching and subscribing last year and allowing me to make more videos that I love. And I also love the fact that there are plenty of other people with a macabre interest in the paranormal, just like me. To kick off 2024, I thought I would tell you about the real-life haunting in Georgia and the girl who could speak to a dead man. This is a story that inspired the Haunting in Connecticut 2 Ghosts of Georgia movie and involves a seemingly innocent relationship between a little girl and her invisible friend, a scientist trying to find a rational explanation for the terrifying phenomenon, and a growing malevolent activity that was quickly taking hold of a poor little girl. Today's real-life haunting comes from the book The Veil, Heidi Wyrick's story, and starts in 1988 when Andy and Lisa Wyrick found the perfect home in the small town of Ellerslie where they could raise their 8-year-old daughter Heidi. The brick ranch house with its spacious yard and cosy aesthetics was ideal for them. The former owners had just abandoned it one day and never returned. Now personally, that would have been a bit of a red flag. But who thinks about bad juju when you have an ensuite bathroom and are in range for McDonald's delivery? Unfortunately, the Wyricks never asked why the previous owners left so abruptly, a simple question that could have saved them from years of terror. For Andy, it was the perfect house, the classic white picket fence American dream. At the time, he was only 21 years old and had his whole life ahead of him. Things were good. Unfortunately, there was one downside to the house. There were no other children around for Heidi to play with, but the little girl didn't seem to care. She would go out in the garden and play for hours with her dolls. A few weeks after moving in, Heidi went out to play as usual, and Lisa wasn't worried at all. That is until her little girl came bursting into the house and asked her mother if she could go and play on the swing with an old man named Mr Gordy. Lisa came out to see who this old man was, and if she needed to make a call to Chris Hansen, but when she looked outside, the yard was empty. Lisa, holding her panic at bay, reminded the little girl that she must not play with people she doesn't know and definitely shouldn't talk to strangers. She then called Andy and told him she was worried that the old man was trying to lure her away. Andy told his wife to lock the doors and wait for him to return. Andy rushed home and went straight to the gun cabinet, 'cause America, and searched the local area for this Mr Gordy, but he couldn't find the man he was looking for. Chillingly, Heidi mentioned that Mr Gordy had come to visit her a couple more times while she played in the garden, often pushing her on the swing. She described to her parents that he had a deep voice and was kind sounding. She described him as having greyish silver hair and always wearing the same dark suit. The Wyricks kept a close eye on the girl but never saw the man. They even asked all of the neighbours if they knew him, but all of them said that no one called Mr Gordy lived in the neighbourhood. After seeing her daughter speaking to thin air in the garden, Lisa reassured herself that the old man was just an invisible friend. Oh sure, when a little girl speaks to herself it's cute and harmless, but when I do it I get funny looks at the restaurant. Especially when I say it's my friend's turn to pay. One morning, Heidi told her mom that she was tired because she had been kept up all night talking to Mr Gordy. From this moment, Mr Gordy was mentioned a lot by the girl. She talked about him all the time, and Lisa humoured the girl by accepting Mr Gordy was real. She would even let Heidi take a second sandwich upstairs for the old man to eat at lunchtime. Ah, so that's how you get a second sandwich. Obviously, the second plate of food always remained uneaten. After all, you don't hear about imaginary elderly friends going out for the early bird special, but neither do ghosts. The little girl told her mother that the two would talk about all kinds of things, but nothing in particular. Lisa would listen into the conversations and begin to grow worried that her daughter was spending too much time by herself. Little did she know, the real problem was the exact opposite. One sunny afternoon, the front door knocked. Heidi ran straight to it to see who it was. The girl's sweet smile turned to an expression of shock as she saw a man with his hand bandaged up and his shirt covered in blood, looking down at her. The man introduced himself as Khan. The frightened girl ran to her mother and told her all about Khan. Lisa went to the door, but no one was there. She then asked if it was Mr Gordy, to which the girl emotionally squeaked, "No, Andy and Lisa accepted that their child had an innocent connection that she would eventually grow out of like any other child. She might have spent a lot of time by herself, but she was a happy child. But all that was about to change, as fiction spilled into reality and a third character began appearing to her, who definitely wasn't there to make friends. One night, Heidi was playing alone when the temperature swiftly dropped. She instantly sensed someone in the room and looked around to see if it was Mr Gordy. Spoilers, it wasn't. The girl spotted a shadowy figure standing outside the door who moved down the hallway. Andy told his daughter there was nothing to be scared of, but she no longer felt safe and insisted she slept in the bed between her parents. Lisa was growing increasingly worried about her daughter and asked her sister Joyce if she'd be interested in moving into the empty house next door so that she could keep another pair of eyes on the girl. Joyce thought it was a great idea, as she was looking for a bigger house at the time. Lisa filled her sister in on all the goings-on and the stories of Mr Gordy. Andy even brought the girl a dog for companionship. As a dog owner and an introvert myself, I think this was a really good move. The parents believed that building the family bond would force out the need for an imaginary friend, but as the family were about to find out, it wouldn't be that easy. Joyce, Lisa's sister, had purchased her house from an elderly woman named Miss Kelly, whose family had lived on the land since the 1900s. A few days after Joyce had settled in, Miss Kelly visited with all the deeds and paperwork to the house. As Joyce flicked through them, however, her heart jumped into her throat as she read a familiar name on a will connected to the house: James S. Gordy. Joyce asked who the man was, to which Miss Kelly explained that he was a close friend of her family who lived in the area, who once ran Miss Kelly's mother's business and dealt with all the legal papers for her. She asked the woman where he lived, to which Miss Kelly gave a soft smile and told her James Gordy had died in 1974. Joyce asked what the man used to look like. Yup, you guessed it, grey hair and a pristine black suit. Joyce went straight to her sister and told her what she'd discovered. Lisa tried to refuse it with the same Mr Gordy. It had to be a coincidence, but something told her she had to discover the truth. She went to the local library to do some research, where she discovered when James Gordy had died, where he was buried, and also found his name connected to several business and building deeds. He was the caretaker for those living in the properties. Worried, Lisa went back to her daughter and told her that Mr Gordy wasn't real, to which the little girl said that he was real to her and appeared as lifelike as everybody else. Seeing the genuineness of the girl's expression, Lisa shared the truth that there was a man called Mr Gordy who died. Heidi asked if they could visit his grave, to which Lisa reluctantly agreed. As they pulled up at the cemetery, Heidi leapt from the car and bolted like a horse at the Grand National, as if she knew the exact location of the grave. Out of hundreds of graves, she eventually stopped at the final resting place of James Gordy. Lisa could no longer ignore the likelihood that her little girl was speaking to a dead man. One evening, Lisa's niece Kelly Brown visited the house. As Lisa and Kelly chatted away, Sheba, the family dog, began barking and snarling like crazy at something in the kitchen. Soon after, the dog managed to escape the yard and never returned. Did something terrify the dog so much it felt like it needed to leave? Or did something sinister want the creature out of the picture so that Heidi could put all her attention back on the spirits of the house? Lisa turned to Miss Kelly and asked her if she had any pictures of James Gordy to find out once and for all if it was the same Mr Gordy that Heidi was communicating with. Miss Kelly obliged and presented an old photo album. Without any prompts, the girl was given the book to look through and asked if she recognised anyone. She sifted through the photos before stopping at one. The girl excitedly pointed and said, "That's Khan, the man with the blood on his shirt and the hurt hand." The blood drained from Miss Kelly's face as she explained that the man Heidi had pointed to was actually called Lorne, her uncle. Miss Kelly went on to explain that he had gotten his hand cut off at a cotton gin when he was just a teenager and lived on the same land as the house along with the family. Many years later, in 1957, he passed away. Lisa was terrified. How could her daughter know anything about this man? I mean, sure, she said Khan and the guy's name was Lorne, but we can give the girl a break as she was very young and her memory was no doubt affected by the fear of seeing a bloodied man at the door. One evening, when Lisa was drying her hair in the mirror, little Heidi was startled by something. Lisa asked, "What's wrong?" To which the little girl softly said, "There's a man behind you, Mummy." No thanks. Up until now, the spirits of the house had only showed themselves to Heidi. While Lisa and Andy were growing more and more scared about the whole thing, there was still the tiniest possibility it was a coincidence, but that was about to change. One afternoon, Lisa and Heidi were helping Kelly, the niece, to arrange flowers for a relative's wedding, when a chair suddenly pulled itself out from under the table and span towards them. "What was that?" screamed Lisa, to which Heidi replied, "It's Mr Gordy. He wants to watch." Now Lisa and Kelly had seen it with their own eyes, undeniable proof that the house was haunted. Lisa told Andy that she thought they should move, but Andy, now owning his dream home, persuaded her that they should wait and see if things get better. But the situation was about to go from bad to worse when things began to get more physical. Heidi was asleep one night when an icy chill woke her. The girl had experienced the extreme drop in temperature before, but this time it was different. Her cheek began to burn. Waking up her parents, Lisa was horrified to see 3 deep scratches down her daughter's face. Andy scooped up Heidi and the family left that night to stay with relatives. After a lengthy discussion, the family unbelievably returned the next day, a mistake the father of the family soon realised that very night. While sleeping, he felt an intense burning pain on his stomach. Jumping up to see what it was, he discovered 3 deep claw marks, just like Heidi's face. The very next night, more deep gashes appeared all over Andy's body. Breaking down, Andy said that if it happened again, they would just leave the house and everything inside of it and escape the horror. Now it was Lisa who was keen to stay in the house and find a solution to their problem. She eventually got in contact with Dr. William Roll, a psychologist and parapsychologist who studied at Oxford and specialised in using science to explain paranormal phenomena. Dr. Roll agreed to help the family after hearing how upset Lisa was and the physical harm the family were receiving. Dr. Roll started out by interviewing all of the family members to determine the truth and rule out imagination. He started with the person at the centre of the haunting, Heidi. He asked the girl about the spirits to test her consistency. He wanted to find out how much of the phenomena was actually grounded in reality. Heidi told the doctor that the spirits appeared real and physical to her, with Mr Gordy able to hold her hand like a breathing living person. Due to her age, she couldn't differentiate the spirits from the living and had no concept of ghosts as an adult would. After the interviews, he determined that none of the family seemed to have any mental illnesses and was certain these were not lies due to the consistency of the accounts and the body language of the family. Dr. Roll believed that the young girl may have been experiencing place memories, a parapsychology theory that explains people seeing apparitions. The theory goes that a place memory is a recording of a person's energy, especially during traumatic events, that is retained in the natural elements in the earth beneath a certain place, similar to a stone tape theory. In certain conditions, and to those who have the ability to tune into these recordings, it is believed that people and events from the past can be seen on loop. This would mean that the apparitions Heidi was seeing was not actually spirits capable of conscious thought, but more like the most realistic projection of all time. And I'm really surprised Disney hasn't found a way of controlling it yet. That would bring a whole new dimension to the Haunted Mansion. Dr. Roll, not to be confused with Professor Sandwich, believed that Heidi was so sensitive to place memories that her mind somehow constructed a more physical looking entity. Kind of like the 4K equivalent to seeing ghosts, I guess. To test the girl, Dr. Roll showed Heidi 10 photographs of men of a similar age wearing suits and mixed in a photograph of Mr. Gordy. She flicked through them and without hesitation she stopped at one of the photographs and correctly identified Mr. James Gordy. This excited Dr. Roll, as there was no way she could have known without physically seeing him, and that her confidence revealing the picture couldn't have been a fluke. After determining that the hauntings were a result of a natural phenomenon, he went about trying to locate the source, the supernatural projector and film, if you will. With more gadgets that would make the Ghostbusters look like broke boys,
like if you're a broke boy, just say so.
He went to work studying electromagnetic fields caused by shifting rocks beneath the earth, which is believed to be able to react with the right temporal lobe of the brain and cause hallucinations. It is also believed that electrically charged particles in the air, called ions, can also affect a person's perception. Dr. Roll discovered a high ion source near Heidi's room, but found nothing unusual in the electromagnetic readings, which could have explained the sightings of Mr. Gordy and the gang as hallucinations. After monitoring the entire house and collecting data on the magnetic activity through the night, he discovered that the usual 0.1 milligauss spoke to 40 milligauss during the night, which was sufficient enough to cause the hallucinations in the highly sensitive and developing mind. After doing some geological research, he discovered that there just happened to be a lot of seismic activity in the earth below the corner of the home, sending magnetic impulses which stimulated the girl's brain. But if this was the case, how did Mr Gordy manage to push Heidi on the swing? How did the chair move on its own? And how could a harmless recording of history target and scratch the family? Well, Dr Roll admitted that he actually couldn't give an answer for that. He said himself that he believed that they were telling the truth throughout the investigation, so could there really have been spirits haunting the home? Years later, the couple had another baby girl called Jordan. While Heidi still saw the spirits of the house, she made friends at school and Mr Gordy began visiting less and less. By the time she was in her teens, Mr Gordy had vanished completely. Unfortunately, the shadowy figure wasn't so keen to let the girl get on with her life. One day, after getting off the school bus, she watched the entity walk from her Aunt Joyce's porch, right next door to her house, and walk straight for the door. See, this is why I'm paranoid about using the shower in old spooky hotels and stuff. She always described this figure as being just a shadow, with no features, unlike how Mr Gordy and Khan appeared. Montine, Heidi's best friend, once experienced firsthand the horrors of the Wyrick home when both girls, alone in the house, heard banging from somewhere inside. When going to investigate, Heidi saw the familiar yet terrifying form of the Shadow Man standing in her room. Eventually, the media heard about the story and a reporter scheduled an interview with the Wyrick family. As he approached the house, he happened to look up at the bedroom window and saw a shadowy figure staring right back at him. Sadly, the articles turned Heidi into a laughingstock in the community and was once again left feeling the way she was when the hauntings first began, alone. While Mr Gordy had moved on, other spirits had similarly moved themselves into the Wyrick house. One afternoon, Lisa's niece Kelly was showing her sister photographs of a recent vacation. As they chatted away, however, they heard Jordan, who was now around 6 years old, talking to someone in her parents' bedroom. As Lisa stepped closer, she could hear her daughter asking questions like, "Are you Heidi's friend? Did it hurt?" Lisa, obviously worried that everything was starting up again, asked Jordan who she was speaking to which Jordan replied, "The one who was killed in a car accident." Activity was ramping up, and it wasn't just a Wyrick building. Next door, Lisa's sister Joyce was cleaning up one night when she began to hear a child laughing in her house. The sound chilled her to the bone, but she kept telling herself it must have been Jordan playing a trick on her. As she searched each room, she opened the door to see the ghost of a little girl standing behind it. The lights of the house began to blink and flicker, and the spirit vanished. Now she believed everything the family had feared for almost a decade. Ghosts existed, and they had latched themselves onto the land. Even Lisa had a fair share of experiences as the years went on, with her once sharing that one night she heard gravelly groaning voices, seemingly having a conversation, coming from all around the room and beneath the bed, which left her petrified and crying all night. I actually had a similar experience the other night when I woke up terrified, and it turned out that I had just left an episode of Friends on, and that's actually a true story. The family were desperate to stop the haunting altogether. They reached out to Dr. William Roll once again and updated him on what had happened since, especially Jordan's experiences. Of course, Dr. Roll still blamed those pesky magnetic field spikes. "They are hallucinations, damn it." Believing that the family likely had psychic abilities, which was heightened due to the magnetic fields, he organised a visit from a psychic, Amy Allen, who was not allowed to know anything about the family and was not allowed to even meet them, who had left by the time she'd arrived. While looking around the property, she picked up on a caretaker, the name given to Mr Gordy in life. She claimed to have picked up on the little girl also. Most chillingly, she saw the faceless shadow man lurking in the rooms, with an energy that could only be described as dark. Despite Dr. Roll being the one who sent her, the psychic believed that the ghosts were indeed haunting the house, and that they couldn't be some sort of supernatural recording. She went on to say that she believed that the mother and daughter of the family had psychic abilities that made them beacons for wandering spirits. And remember, this psychic never met the family or knew anything about the haunting. Lisa, on the other hand, had a different opinion and believed that the spirits were demonic and sought out the help of a pastor, Stephen Shelley, who blessed the family in the church in front of the rest of the community. Sadly, this didn't stop the haunting. It's almost as if the land had become a lighthouse for the spirits, and once they found their way to the land of the living, they struggled to move on again. What started out as Heidi's invisible friend, who was good-natured and friendly, evolved into a full-blown haunting with several spirits, both good and bad. Whether William Roll is correct about Heidi being sensitive to place memories, or Amy Allen is right about the females of the family holding psychic abilities that become beacons to ghosts, or even if Lisa is correct about there being demonic forces at play, many agree that something terrifying happened at that old house in the small town of Ellerslie, Georgia. Of course, there is one more explanation, that this family have managed to pull off one of the longest running paranormal hoaxes of all time. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and like to watch more just like it, don't forget to subscribe, comment and give it a thumbs up. It all helps the algorithm and it'll help me make more videos. And as always, sleep well, friends.